How can you finance your travel dreams? Lucía Cueto Kearney became a farmer. Hear more on this episode of Food, Flowers, and Fun. If you're the woman who does it all, farm work, housework, bookwork, homework, getting up at the break of dawn, this is the podcast for you.
How do you multiply by fractions now?
Get away from the cares of the day. Restock, rootstock, feedstock, seedstock. Chat with women around the world who raise food, flowers, and fun. With your host, Kay Castrataro. That's me. Welcome back to the illness version of Food, Flowers, and Fun. I have got the great voice of like Darth Vader. So thanks for hanging with us today. As always, we are sponsored by Penlight for Farmers, and we are helping you create purposeful farm lives full of time, energy, and abundance. And today we have Lucía Kearney with us, and she is just amazing. She has a fabulous farm, Pea Shoot Farm. I've actually gotten to visit her farm, which I don't always get to do with all of our guests, so that's pretty cool. And she has just some amazing perspectives on farm life and farm culture. So, Lucía, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. I'm also getting over a cold.
Yeah, so we're gonna have coughing and sneezing and nose blowing. It's okay. We're all good with that. So Lucía, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into farming, because your family background actually influences the way you farm an awful lot.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like I got into farm. So my grandfather grew up on a sheep ranch in Argentina. I do a very different kind of farming. That's the farm he grew up on is like many thousands of acres. Um, and I do very, very small scale vegetable production. I got into farming probably due to a combination of things. Part of it was that I really wanted to travel after college and I didn't have money. So I worked on farms in Central and South America before getting like a real farm job in Pennsylvania, my home state. And then I would say that I got into farming in part to help address climate change, because I think that small farms are key in that fight. And then also because I love working out of doors and I fell in love with the work when I was doing it just because it was a cheap way to travel. Yeah, and I think that farming addresses like an intersection of a lot of different crises that as a society we are facing today.
Yeah, I love what you were saying about using farming as a way to travel, because it is kind of that like migrant farmer thing going on, and not just doing it because you needed to make a living. Oh, this is my cat, Vavochka. He pops in. You don't see him yet, but he just came flying in from the left, and he will probably show up because he likes to be in the way. But yeah, I love how farming does give us that option to really kind of move around and experience different cultures and different ways of living and being in the world. So tell me some of those intersectionalities that you're talking about. You were talking about climate change, and how do you see the way that you farm influencing climate change?
You should totally fact check me on everything I say, but
Well, we
agriculture.
want to do that anyway. Like this, but this
Just
is an opinion. This is an opinion show. So
yeah, it's
so
an opinion.
farmers out there, if you do
Yeah.
not necessarily, if you're like, I'm not sure I believe that, it's okay. Go
Yeah.
do some research.
Yeah.
We're okay with prompting some research.
I just want to make sure, because I'm like probably going to be pulling numbers out of my head that I have read at some point. I'll try to be a little more vague. Agriculture is a huge contributor to greenhouse gases in the world. A lot of people may not realize. Part of that has to do with like the way that we raise like 98% of our beef cattle in this country, where we're like putting waste in waste lagoons where it's decomposing anaerobically and producing a ton of methane. It also has to do with how we're moving, food from all across the globe or even from California, where a lot of our vegetables get produced over here. Um, yeah, packing things in trucks and driving them across the country, turns out there's a lot of emissions associated
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that. And also just the synthetic fertilizers or like synthetically produced nitrogen fertilizers that are used in most of conventional farming um, produce a lot of greenhouse gases in the production in the like Franz Haber. Is it Fritz Haber or Franz Haber? Whatever, the Haber-Bosch like process for producing nitrogen.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a
yeah,
pretty, I mean, I think anybody who is reasonable will be able to look at the fact that there are more environmentally friendly and less environmentally friendly ways of producing our food. And
yeah.
that systems that are closer to the natural order. I've had a composter on here, Jane Mariner, and
Oh yeah.
those systems that are able to be more closed systems without a lot of excess waste, or where the waste is like transformed on the farm. I just saw a woman on Instagram who she sounds like she's Irish. I don't know her very well, so I might be wrong, but her accent sounds Irish. And she has got sheep's wool that she's using, like a lot of sheep's wool, using for mulch on her gardens. And people have given her a hard time about that, saying, well, that's a waste of wool. And she's like, what? Would you rather have the wool here, or would you rather have it in a landfill where it's never going to break down? But there isn't a market here for wool. So we have this wool, we have these sheep. So what are we going to do with it? And so finding a way to take that waste and then actually make it a resource is the ideal way. But a lot of modern farming doesn't do that. Like it creates waste that then becomes a problem and people don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend like several hours talking about the ills of conventional farming and like fertilizer runoff into rivers and desertification and just like the rapid rate at which we're burning through topsoil in this country. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I think one thing that's nice is that I do think that there's because I'm always looking for ways for like how can we work together on the left and the right. And I do think that sustainable agriculture is like one of those places where a lot of people come together and agree
Yeah.
on that like local sustainable agriculture is good. It's good for the local economy, it's good for the environment, it's good for your community, it's good for bringing people together. I mean, the farmers market is like the best place to be on the weekends.
Yeah, yeah, and the truth is that regardless of what kind of farming you're doing, whether throwing all the catchphrases around sustainable, regenerative, conventional, whatever,
Yeah.
when you're doing it on smaller scales in more local environments, any negative impacts you have are going to be smaller just because the scale is smaller. And then, so different processes that might be better or worse in large scale settings get minimized just by size. Whereas when you're talking about like completely industrialized agriculture, there's a value to that in that we get lots of food, and that's and important to being able to feed people, and has a greater potential for higher levels of negative ramifications if we're not careful
Yeah.
about how we're
I mean,
doing
not even potential. I think it does.
it. Absolutely.
And I think too, part of the issue is that like, in this country we produce way more corn than we actually use. I mean, there's like corn rotting in fields in the Midwest, and most of that corn is becoming like high fructose corn syrup and like super ultra processed foods, or like the majority is going, ethanol that's going into your gasoline.
Right.
Um, and or it's getting fed to like cows and feedlots that shouldn't be eating corn. I don't know. There's
No, absolutely. I think there is a huge discussion about just because we can do it, does it mean we should be doing it?
yeah.
And how do we look at the whole system and improve the whole system.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I'm a big fan of like I don't want to villainize any farmer. Like I really don't because I think that we need our farmers and
Yeah,
there's room for all of us to be learning and improving from each other. Um, what I what I do think is that there's also room for all of us to take little steps that can make things better. And so if you're in a system that is inherently more problematic, how do we take little steps to start making that change? And I think things like growing corn that doesn't get used for anything. I think our subsidy system is a huge driver of problems because having been a dairy farmer, I knew people who would produce like corn silage and they'd raise the corn knowing that they were going to just let it go to rot and they would get paid for what didn't get used. And that system, like paying people because they're growing things they don't need, that's just a bad system.
yeah,
So it's not necessarily that the farmers themselves are bad. Like I wouldn't say that.
yeah.
It's that there's a system in place that is encouraging negative behavior.
Yeah, yeah, there are incentives in place. No, no, I agree. I don't want to vilify anyone, especially since like I think a lot of the farming system that we have to today has to do with like policies that were implemented in the 70s
Absolutely.
and that were pushing people towards that sort of like get big or get out
Yeah.
mentality.
Yeah, and I think also a view of agriculture that I'm trying to challenge. Like I don't think we should look at agriculture by scale or, permanence of your like whether you own the land, not own the land. Like there's so many different things that we can use to say, oh, this is real farming or not. And
Yeah.
I don't like that approach. I'm like, if you're growing things, then you're a farmer. If you're raising food or beauty or experiences on your farm, that's farming. And then it's how do we do it better? How do
Yeah.
we support the farmer more? How do we support the community? How do we support their financial side? So you were saying that you do small vegetable farming, but
Mhm.
you do no-till vegetable farming. Am I
Yes.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And you have a really interesting approach. Like when I looked at your place, I went and I was like, wow, how does she do this? Because she's no-till, there are like no weeds. I'm like, how does she make this work? And you're talking about using massive amounts of compost on your land. So can you talk to us a little bit about the whole process that you use?
Yeah. So I do, here we go. I do specifically what some people call like a no dig or like a deep mulch system. Which I think is very good for like very small scale systems. I think once you get bigger, it gets more difficult. So I basically established my farm literally by putting down cardboard on top of grass, and then like a good 4 inches of compost. Um, and then every year, I basically just layer compost directly on top of that bed, um, rather than, so I don't till in anything. And when I'm pulling out crops, I'm cutting them at the base and I'm letting the roots decompose in the soil. Um, and then as much as I can, I'm covering with straw. So for like my tomatoes and peppers and like bigger plants like that, I'll have like a layer of straw in the bed to try to prevent weeds from coming up. Um,
And you do a lot of intercropping.
I do, yeah,
Yeah,
because I'm
talk
very,
talk to me about that because I did grow up on a conventional farm, like
oh yeah,
lots of tillage,
yeah,
like it's just the way that I grew up. And so I just love seeing all the different ways that we can farm and broadening my horizons.
yeah.
And I thought your intercropping was beautiful. And so talk to me about the different crops you choose to grow, why you choose to grow them,
Yeah.
and which ones grow together and why.
So
Mhm.
basically, I'm in a very small space. I'm like hoping I can eventually get up to like a 1/4 acre under cultivation, which is teeny tiny by farm standards. And right now, I'm maybe up to like 1/8 of an acre under cultivation. And that's just sort of the reality of the space that we bought as a housing co-op. And so because of that, I'm trying very, very hard to grow as intensively as I can. And one of the ways that you can do that is by intercropping different things. And so I'd say like the two main crops that I intercrop are scallions and lettuce, because I can throw them everywhere. And so I'm basically just seeding scallions and lettuce every like 1 to 2 weeks throughout the season. And then I'm throwing, so for example, I interplant scallions with my potatoes. So I plant my potatoes. The same day that I plant my potatoes, I put a line of transplanted scallions right down the middle. I do 2 rows of potatoes in like a 36-inch bed. Is it 36 inches? Yes. No, it's not. It's smaller than that. It's 30 inches. It's a 30-inch bed. I do 2 rows of potatoes and I do a row of scallions down the middle.
Okay.
Um, and the nice thing about scallions is they'll just keep growing forever if you leave them there. So there's not like there's a very large harvest window. And they actually get, as the potatoes get bigger, they get kind of protected by the potatoes. And so I can harvest tons of scallions out of the potato beds, even beyond once I dig up the potatoes. Sometimes then I'll just plant my next crop in
And
2 rows
you
on either side.
and do you find that the scallions intercropped also help reduce insect pressure, or have you not noticed that so much?
I don't know because I don't have anything to compare it to. I
Yep, yep.
do like because one thing that I learned the hard way is that this farm was basically a lawn that got transitioned into a farm. And it turns out when you do that, then you get to deal with turf pests for the first few years. So I have like I struggle a lot with wireworm damage, and I was struggling a lot with beetle grub, like
Yeah.
oriental beetle, Japanese beetle
Oh yes,
grub
yes.
for the first couple of years. Now that seems to be tapering off, thankfully. But apparently the life cycle of a wireworm is like 6 years, so that's gonna be
Oh really? I did not know that.
yeah.
Oh, so that is a long term.
Yeah.
And
But I
so
don't yeah.
how do you manage them?
Um, I kill a lot of them. I mean for the grubs I like water in with nematodes every spring. I don't know how much that helps with the wireworms. I mean I can tell that they're starting to taper off, but I don't know. For now I kind of like for my potatoes, for example, I harvest all of my potatoes as new potatoes because I'm trying to avoid wireworm damage. If I can just get them out earlier, then there's
Sure.
less of a chance. But there's just like a certain amount of loss that I just accept for now because there's only
Sure.
so much I can do about the wireworms
Sure.
as they
So
transition out.
yeah, and if I jump in too quickly, tell me, hey,
Oh,
stop, because I do tend to get all excited about things.
yeah.
So in addition to the way that you farm your land being very intentional, you mentioned that you purchased the property as a housing co-op.
Yes.
And I would love for you to share your housing co-op experience because I also think that it is a really unique thing that you guys are doing. And I know other groups have done it, but it's not something that you see very often, and it's something that has to be very carefully managed and
Yeah.
planned to have it work well. And so tell us about your co-op experience.
Sure. Okay, so I live in a housing co-op called the Wolf Tree Cooperative. We bought land together in 2022. There are 5 of us who are owner members of the co-op. And we started planning like 4 years before that. All of our financial systems, we have like, 85 pages of bylaws that we had to submit with the state in order to be like a recognized housing cooperative. Um, so I could spend like many hours talking about how the co-op is set up. But the short version is that we are like a partial income sharing co-op. Um, so we all contribute a percentage of our income into our like shared bank account every month. And that pays for all of our food, all of our, our mortgage, all of our expenses, all of our maintenance, utilities,
And
etc.
this is like you started out with one house
Started out with
on
one.
one piece of land, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
And our neighbors told us that they were moving. And we were like, shoot, this is the only house, like literally it was the house next door. It's the only house we can see from our property. And so we did a lot of number crunching and soul searching, and we ended up buying the property next door to ours too. So now we have two houses on 100 acres. It's mostly woods.
Yeah.
Uh, and there are six people living here right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you were talking about the income sharing,
Yeah.
and I would love if you would give us kind of some broad strokes of that because the income that each of you generates is really, really different, right?
Yeah.
You have people who
Yeah.
have, for me, considered very high incomes,
Yes.
and then people who have much lower incomes.
Farmer incomes. Yeah.
Yes. Well, can you give us like a range? You don't have to be specific about, but maybe how much of a difference is there in the income that like your highest and lowest person generates? And
Yeah.
you not have to say who is the highest and
I was gonna say,
lowest.
broadly, we have a range. Okay, so I'm at the bottom right now. I'm paying myself. All right, in the interest, I do think that farmers should be like super open about the money that we make because it's tough.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm entering my third season and I pay myself $1,000 a month right now,
Okay.
the farm. The goal is to pay myself more than that, obviously, but it's early days. There's still a lot of,
Yeah.
I'm still balancing between paying myself and investing in infrastructure and getting
Yeah.
the farm to the size that it needs to be. So I'm
Yeah,
at
and remembering that it is virgin land. Like it was
was never
turf
a farm.
and flowers, like flower gardens, but most of it was turf.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
no. Zero farm infrastructure on
Right.
this. I think actually it's never been farmed, this
Yeah.
parcel, which is
Yeah, so that's a big, I mean, that is a big investment. So I think it is important for people looking at this to realize that we're talking not only a kind of first generation vegetable farmer, because I know you come from a farming heritage, but
yeah.
this is first generation vegetable farmer, virgin soil, not even like open land, but like
Yes.
yard type
Yeah.
thing, which is a whole different thing. Okay, so you've got your income and then
And then at the top, she makes, I don't know if I should say it, somewhere over like $200,000.
yeah, a good amount of money.
A good amount of money, yes. And I think the thing is that we are all sort of like, I don't want to say that we're ideologues, but I feel like ideologically aligned
Yeah,
in sort of like a belief that that our like socioeconomic system is not necessarily good at assigning value. Uh,
yeah. Talk to
and
me about that. I love what you're saying there, and I totally agree with you. So how is it? Like talk to me about that value.
I mean, I think maybe an easy way to illustrate it is just that, a banker on Wall Street who I would say is not necessarily meaningfully contributing to creating a better society is making a hell of a lot more money than a public school teacher, who I think is like demonstrably contributing a very important thing.
Yeah,
And farmers
who's shaping
make a lot more.
hundreds of individual lives,
Yeah, exactly. Or a nurse um
or a farmer who's feeding people
or
and
a farmer
cooking
who's feeding
tea and
people. Yeah. Like I
yeah.
often feel like as farmers, we are providing a social service to our communities.
Mm,
We're feeding our communities food that is like nutritionally dense. It's produced in a way that's good for the environment. And we're creating community. We're creating connection to like place.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
and farmers are not compensated for the work that we do.
No, no. So if you're looking at like a $12,000 income, because,
Yeah.
even I, with my poor math skills, can multiply 1,000 by
Yeah.
12, and I come up with 12,000. And I'm like, yeah, that is nowhere near 200 grand.
Yeah.
So when you figure out what's equitable, and
Right.
I'm going to use I'm assuming it's equitable
Yeah.
because equal. Again, this is the equal is we're giving the same amount.
Right.
Equitable is we're giving a proportion that is fair
Yes.
to the people. How did you determine what that equitable looked like?
So I actually used to live in a large housing co-op in Philly. And this was like a 55-person housing co-op. It's been around
Wow.
since the 70s. Yeah. Um, and while I was there, there was an sort of like an overhaul of how people contributed rent in this housing co-op. And the idea was that it was to be equitable rather than equal.
Yep.
And they came up with a great system that they called like the roadblock system, which is essentially like a list of different realities about your life that impact your ability to make and build wealth.
Oh, I love that. Okay,
Yeah.
talk to me about that.
So, for example, um, it's like it considered like gender, like women in this country, we still tend to make less money on the dollar for the same jobs that men do.
It's just a
That's just
reality.
reality. That's just true.
You can look at the employment numbers, you can look at the salaries, and it really is just a
Yeah.
reality. Yep.
Yeah.
Lots of reasons for it, but that's the reality. Yep.
Yeah. So, so this roadblock map, looks at gender, it looks at race, looks at sexuality, like what are things that impact your ability to make money in the world? And then it looks at like socioeconomic background. So it looks at things like, did you have student loans when you graduated from college? Like, do you have to provide money for people in your family versus being able to receive money from your family?
Mm.
Things like that. I'm trying to think what else is on there.
I would imagine things
There's a
like,
lot.
are you caretaker of elderly children, disabled, people
Yeah.
who need more attention and time, that therefore also limits your ability to work in different ways.
Yeah.
Being a single mom, I see that all the time. Like there's such an interesting, I'm so grateful for so many of the quote unquote negative experiences in my life because they have really helped me to see life in different ways than I ever imagined. And to realize that these are things that actually do impact not only the time you have to work, but also the emotional capacity you have to put into certain types of work, and that you can be limited by things that like stress. You can be
Yeah.
limited by burnout. Like those are very real things as well. So all these other factors contribute to that. Um, so so how did you transfer that? I'm assuming that some of that roadmap came
Yeah.
into Wolf Creek, right?
Wolf tree. Wolf
Wolf
tree.
Tree.
Yeah. Do you know what a wolf tree is? Maybe I should.
No, tell me.
I don't want to explain this poorly. We have a forester in our group,
Okay,
and she came up with the name. But a wolf tree essentially is like an old tree that's maybe like left behind after there's like a clear cut. Maybe there's this older tree that's still there, and it's the tree that sort of like creates the habitat for the forest to be able to come back.
okay.
Um, Anyways, you can find. I think she's better at identifying them, but you can find like these trees in the woods that are like way older than all the trees around
Yep,
them.
yep.
It's because they sort of like were there to like create that habitat for.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about it. And when I was a kid, we had a big oak tree up at the top of our cow pasture.
Yeah,
And it was by far the biggest, oldest oak tree on the place. Like there were branches that we would kind of bounce on the branches until, finally it died and got knocked over in storms and all that kind of stuff. But I can totally see, like, that's the image I have of that one
yeah,
tree where everything else are either different types of trees and they're younger, it's more like newer growth, and that
yeah,
it had an identity kind of and created an identity. And I can see how the habitat would definitely spread out from that,
yeah,
like be
yeah,
influenced very firmly by that.
yeah, yeah. Have you ever read? Not to get off topic, but
It's
I feel
not
like
off topic. Nothing's off topic here.
everyone should read "Finding the Mother Tree" by Suzanne Simard. Do you know it?
No,
She's
but it's gonna have to go
yeah.
on my book list. I have a whole list of books and movies I've gotta add.
She studies forests up in British Columbia and comes from like a forester family, and did really interesting work showing the ways in which trees communicate with each other. um, and like
Yeah.
feed each other and support one another. And was like a big proponent for leaving behind a certain number of trees to try to like regenerate forest growth after clear cuts. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
different. She's great.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to look at that more. Like I know
Yeah.
I've done well, I was gonna say I've done research and that would not be completely accurate. I have read about like the mangrove forests and how, it's kind of similar to that, where all the roots of the different mangroves all kind of grow together and it becomes like its own ecosystem.
Yeah.
And that in the forest, the trees do tend to do that as well, that they branch out and they're all kind of communicating with each other and
Yeah.
really influencing the whole nature of the soil and the water and all the microbes and yeah, it's fascinating. We're
Yeah.
all connected. I think this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like the more I learn, the more I'm like we are just so connected on like a micro atomical level. Like
Yeah.
it's so profound and that's why when something is hurting one of us somewhere, it hurts all of us, even if we're not aware of that impact. Like, we need to be taking care of each other and our land because we really do all influence each other. That's my
Yeah. I know, and I think it's we exist in like symbiotic relationships with one another. Like all the stuff about mycorrhizal, um,
yes,
yeah, fungi is just wild and
it
mind blowing
is.
and so cool. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. So actually, what you're doing in your co-op is kind of a form of this. Like you're all working together. You've got very people with different backgrounds, different experiences,
Yeah.
different socioeconomic levels, and yet you are living together in one house, although some of you will be
Yeah.
moving or
Yeah.
have moved. You have moved into the second house. I think when we were at your farm, you hadn't yet moved into the second one,
It's very
maybe.
possible.
I
Yeah.
think it was that.
Three of us in this house now, and wait a minute. Yeah, and three people in the other house.
Okay, all right, yeah, I'm pretty sure you were all together.
Yeah.
So, and yet you're still one co-op. So even
Yeah.
though you're now two separate households, you're still one group. So, how does that influence the way that you farm?
Um, I mean, it makes the farm possible, really. I
Yeah.
mean, okay, so part of the setup is that the co-op actually provides support for the farm in a bunch of different ways. One of them is that I'm not responsible for the mortgage. The farm is not responsible for the mortgage, which is an incredible weight off of the farm
Right.
because margins are very slim. Um, part of it is having land access, sort of like guaranteed land access is amazing and such a difficult thing that we have so many people in this country who want to farm and who can't access land because land is expensive and it's really hard to start out farming taking on a lot of debt. Uh,
Yeah, and especially in Rhode Island, we've mentioned it here on this show before, but I mean, Rhode Island has the highest land value for farmland in the
yes.
country. So
Yeah.
when you're looking at that, followed very closely by New Jersey, but when you look at that, that makes it really hard for young farmers, new farmers,
Yeah.
to come in and do that. So yeah, to
Yeah.
be able to appreciate that access is a huge element.
Yeah, definitely. And something I'm very grateful for. And then the co-op actually pays like a certain amount of money into the farm each month. And then like the farm provides vegetables for the co-op as much as possible. We're still like working out the kinks and figuring out like what amount makes sense. And um, there's obviously a balance between like needing to make money at market and needing to feed the co-op that we're still figuring out because we're still in the first few years. But yeah, I mean that was a part of it was by design that the co-op would support this farm and the farm would support the co-op.
Mm.
That was like always a part of the vision. And it allows someone like me who doesn't have family money to draw on
Mm.
um, to be able to farm. When
Yeah.
otherwise I have no idea how I would have managed it.
No, and I think I was really fascinated just by the whole approach and how very, I mean, you talk about being ideologically aligned. You really have to be if you're going to enter into this kind of agreement. Like, you can't have somebody who's very individualistic in that setting. Like, it has to be a belief system. And again, not judging anybody's belief systems at all, because we all have our own stuff that matters to us. But I found it really beautiful that there was that definite commitment to each other, that, you know, you were finding value. And I think this is, going back to that non-economic value, that like you're producing food and the food is coming into the environment. You're doing stuff that's taking care of the property. So
Yeah.
there's a benefit to the other members in that, and that doesn't necessarily show up on the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah. Or there are other ways. I'm always looking for ways that the farm can support the co-op too. So like the farm, received an energy grant through, I guess it's through DEM, to
Okay.
put solar panels up. So we're like in the process of finishing up that project, and that's going to help, reduce the amount of money that we're paying per month in electricity.
Right.
Like one of my housemates,
So
we
how
have,
did that work? I'm curious. I'm curious how you got DEM money that was able to do both of it.
well, it's through the farm, and I don't know exactly if it's through D.
No, but okay, so
It's
you
whatever
got you
the
got a
like Rhode
farmer, you
Island
got kind of
energy.
like a farmer grant
Yes, I got a
to
farmer
do
grant.
infrastructure work for
Yes.
the farm,
Yep.
which you're on the farm. And
Yep.
so what I'm hearing is that the amount of energy that the farm itself needs, you're going to be producing more than the farm itself needs. And so it applies to the whole property.
Yeah. I mean, right now we don't have a distinction between the energy that the farm uses and the energy that the co-op uses. Um,
Fair enough.
we
Yep.
don't track that. I think it'd be pretty difficult to track.
Yeah, no, I mean a lot of without a second meter, a
Yeah.
lot of farms don't. They do well, like my house, they do square footage, like
Yeah.
because I have a home office. So when it comes to tax time,
Yeah.
which here it is,
Mhm.
we should talk taxes another day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when it comes tax time, we sit here and I look at the square footage and they take that percentage and do a
Right.
thing. So I'm sure they probably do the same thing for your electrical
Yeah,
usage,
that'd be an interesting. Yeah.
because you must have like a home office. Yes.
Yeah, but it's a shared home office. So, there's a there's a certain amount of blurriness, between the farm and the co-op.
Yeah.
So the point being that, we were able to get this energy
Yeah.
grant. Thank you very much, Rhode Island, to put up solar panels, and that'll benefit both the farm and the co-op.
Right.
Or like, we got a grant to put up like a composting shed. And a lot of the raw ingredients that are going into the compost are coming from the co-op, from our
Right.
kitchen. So it's like that, yeah. I just to say that I'm constantly trying to think like what are projects that will benefit both the co-op and the farm?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's thinking outside of just your immediate needs. But before we chatted, you did mention that one of the things you'd like to talk about in this
yeah.
episode was like the financial stability of farmers and different things that could support them. So talk to me about that, because, that fits in with your co-op thing, where the finances of the farm are not just they're not just farm connected. Like it's
Yes.
it's bigger. So talk to me about your thoughts on economic viability for farmers.
Yeah. Okay. So here's my soapbox. And again, you should fact check everything I say just in case, because these are all things that I've read, but who knows if I remembered exactly. But a lot of people may not know, like the median income in this country for farmers. So that's looking, at farms that fall in the middle, which is like mid-sized family farms, not like the giant farms in California, which are that's a whole other ballgame.
Right. Whole different. Yeah.
And not like hobby farms at the other end. Um, the medium income was like a loss for many, many years of like between like $1,500 and $2,000. After the pandemic, that kind of bumped up and became like a net gain of like $1,500. Um, and
Ridiculous.
I think in this country we're facing a crisis, which is that the median age of the farmer right now is like
50.
yeah, in late 50s, I think now. Um, and we have all these farmers who are gonna
They're
retire, and
my age. I'm gonna be 50 next year. They're my age, these old
I think
people.
they're older. They're older. I think it was 50, now it's like 55. I think it's
Might be
getting
like 54, but it is still in the 50s. Like you're absolutely
yeah.
right. And that's, you know, it's a
Yeah.
tough
And
job for somebody at my age to keep doing.
it's a tough job, and the thing is a lot of those people they their children have seen how difficult it is, and a lot of people are just going to end up selling those properties because that's their retirement savings right there. And those farms might not be farms in the future. And on the other hand, there's a huge interest from like young people and like my generation and younger in farming, but there's that land access piece is really tough. And it's just tough. It's really tough to make a living. Like I feel like
Mm.
people need to be as honest as possible about the fact that it is really hard to make a living as a farmer.
Yeah.
And like this year, what the number of like bankruptcies, farm bankruptcies, like doubled with all the stuff with the tariffs that we don't have to get into.
No,
Or
but I think it's, again, it goes into that systems approach that we were
yeah,
talking about earlier, and the fact that it is reasonable to assume that if you put tariffs in place that deprive your soybean farmers of their guaranteed export. So
yeah,
now your soybean farmers can't export. And then you buy in cattle from another country
yeah,
that your farmers are like, but we have cattle here. We
yeah,
need to be selling our, like, when your system is creating a situation where your farmers are losing their markets,
yeah.
there's a problem there. Like, of course you're going to lose farmers because how do you lose, like, soybean, those big soybean farmers, they don't they don't sell like you do. They don't have
No,
like 25 or 100 different people that they see every week who come in, and they can say, all right, well, I'm not selling to this person, but I can throw some stuff online. That's
right.
not how commodities work. Like,
No, no,
it
no,
used to
not at
work.
all.
You do your contract. We did this. We used to
Yeah,
grow, not on our scale because we didn't have that land, but we used to grow cabbages
yeah,
or a coleslaw. And so for a few years, the coleslaw company would come to us at the beginning of the year and say, we want all the cabbage you can grow. And we're like,
right,
cool. All right, guaranteed crop. So we put in cabbage every year.
right.
And then one year, we put in the cabbage. And when it was time to sell the cabbage, they were like, yeah, we don't want your cabbage now.
Yeah, no,
We
no,
got it somewhere else cheaper. And we were like,
right. And you can't go
what? We
back in
got, well,
time
right. It's
and
not
plant
it's not
something
like
else.
you go back and plant a different
Yeah,
crop. It's not like you have, like, it's
yeah,
Rhode Island. How many coleslaw factories do you have around Rhode
yeah.
Island? Like, not a whole lot. So then you're
No,
sitting there
yeah.
saying, what are we going to do with thousands and thousands and thousands of bins of cabbage? And so then you're like selling it at a loss just so that you feel like you're not completely wasting all of your time for the year
Yeah, or
trying to
people are
make
tilling
a
in
difference.
entire fields of, yeah. No, 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 definitely. I feel like it's like the point is that farming is really hard if you're on like the giant conventional side, and farming is really hard if you're on the small, like sort of
Yeah.
nimble local side.
Yep.
Just because, like, if I have a rainy day at the farmer's market, maybe I make half of what I normally do, and then I
Right.
have all this extra stuff, and maybe I'm like trying to figure out a way to sell it, to a local grocery store. Um,
For
yeah,
less money than you would get at the
less money,
farmer's
yeah,
market.
and like
Yeah.
putting in more work to do that as well.
Yep.
And I think and there are farmers out there that are killing it, who are doing really well, who are like making a decent amount of money, but it is really hard to get to that point. It's especially hard to get to that point if you don't have a lot of money going in.
And you need a lot of support in the very least in planning, because I feel like that business planning piece, farmers in general and this is a gross overgeneralization,
Yeah.
but most farmers are farming because they like to farm, not because they like to do business. And so they are farm business owners, but the business owning part of it is more challenging for them than the growing of the product or
Yeah.
marketing the product or, so they
Right.
need a lot of support to do that, but that costs money. You've got consultants like me that'll help you with all kinds of things in your farm life, but we also need to pay our bills. So it's like, how do you get the support you need if you're already on a tight margin and you're a little concerned that maybe the support won't pay off? Although I would argue that if you've got the right support, it definitely does pay off.
Yeah.
But, again,
Yeah, and I think that and I think this is where I think that there are a lot of supports for farmers in that regard. Like in New England, we have the Carrot Project. They're really awesome. Like they help me set up all my books. I use their templates for my bookkeeping. I check in with them once a year and they go over my numbers. They're amazing. Like there's Rhode Island Food Policy Council. They run a free business class for farmers that also for me getting set up was like amazing because I'd never run a business before. I'd done a lot of farming, but I'd never run a business before. And there are lots of workshops like they've got boots to bushels at URI, which is like beginning organic farming techniques. And all those things are amazing. And at the same time, it is still really hard to make a living, like even with all those resources. And so I've sort of come to a place where I'm like, I think we should be trying as much as we can to be paying farmers for their labor. Like if I calculate what
wait a
I
minute.
per
Wait a
hour,
minute. You mean we should be paying farmers for the time that
yeah,
they put into their product? That's
yeah,
a that's a shocking concept.
I know, I know. Um,
I'm
and,
having
and I
having a
think
paradigm explosion.
I know. And I feel like this is going to sound very radical to a lot of people, but I think to a
All
certain
right,
degree,
we do
like,
radical.
we need to sort of like divorce what the market is willing to pay for that labor, which is not a lot. I make way below minimum wage right now, and I work hard. And I do something that I think is good for my community. Like I'm feeding my community. I am, a part of a generation of farmers who are developing like farming systems that are good for the environment. These are all good things.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I'm just like, the reality is that at market, it's very, very difficult. The margins are slim. It's very difficult to make enough money to pay myself in any sort of reasonable way. I'm working on it. I have faith I will get there. It's going to take a while. And so for me, I think that we should be thinking about we should be thinking about making direct payments to farmers. This is
Mm.
where I have come to, like universal basic income. There's a push in the UK right now to have a universal basic income for farmers because they were all really hurt by Brexit. They lost a ton of their markets. A lot of farmers there are struggling, and they're making the argument that like we are providing a service for our country. Maybe we should get a certain amount of just like straight up financial support.
Mm.
Or even in this country, like accessing healthcare is hard for farmers. Accessing dental care is hard for farmers. Like maybe these are
Hard
services.
for independent business people.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. It's
yeah.
like these are things that we could help farmers with that would have a very real impact on people's ability to farm and keep farming.
Yeah.
There is I met this Dutch guy like 3 years ago, and he lives in this community in the Netherlands. It's super interesting. There's a bunch of them in the Netherlands. And it's essentially like 100 and some households get together, and together they pay the salary of farmers who produce
Huh.
food for those households.
So it's like a CSA on
It's
a
like
grand,
a
it's similar to a CSA on a grander scale though.
Yeah, and I think the important piece there, and I would love to go visit at some point because he was
Yeah.
telling me about this, and I was like, yes, this is the thing that we have to do, is that it's not saying like, here, farmer, we have a guaranteed market, which is great. Guaranteed market is great. It's saying we're gonna pay your salary. Like we're gonna,
Yeah.
I don't know how benefits work in the Netherlands, but like rather
Well,
than
it's a
have,
they have a lot of um so I have a friend who lives in Denmark,
oh yeah,
and so they have a lot of social services
oh yeah,
that
Denmark has
are
the great
totally,
social
but
service.
I think most of Europe and the Netherlands, as a part of Europe, but
Yeah.
there is a greater sense there that the government has an obligation to care for their people at a basic level. Not that they're guaranteeing them wealth and prosperity and like,
Yeah, but like the
amazing,
base
but that
level.
there is a base level of subsistence that they think that people should have, and they
Yeah.
work really hard to make that happen for them, which is why so many European communities are like the happiest
Yeah, Denmark is
and
one of the happiest countries in the world.
happiest countries in the world. They get, huge vacation time, huge, like a month. But
Yeah.
for us in the US, I'm like, hardly anybody has a guaranteed month off. Like
No,
you get a week or
no.
two vacation, you figure you've got a heck of a benefits package.
Right, right. No, and like this country, we don't have maternity leave. We don't have free preschool. We don't like things that are like very, very commonplace in Europe. No, and I think too the mistake that we make in this country is thinking of it as a like what do people like to say?
Well, we put a
Like a
label on
handout,
it. We put a
and I
label
think
on
that's
it.
a
We call
mistake.
it socialism or
Right.
Marxism or like we divorce it from the benefits by putting it in a box, which I think is not
Yeah.
helpful.
No, no. And I think if you talk to like your average Swedish person, for example, they're going to say that this is the government making an investment in the Swedish people, which in turn benefits the country. It's like if you are
Which
able,
is there any other like a
yeah,
government for the people by the people? Like, is that not of the people
exactly.
for the people by the people? Like,
Yeah.
wow. Like there is something really profound about that as
Yeah.
Americans we struggle to get our hands around that because we've got
It drives me crazy. We have this weird, like,
there is a paradigm shift
live
going
around
on in this country
individuals.
right now that I think is much needed. I think it's going to be really hard for us. These are hard times, but I think questions that have been avoided by labels are
Yeah.
no longer able to be avoided because, my dad used to tell me as a kid, you got to follow this through to its logical conclusion.
Yeah.
And when you follow some of these things through to our logical conclusion, we become less than human by
Yes.
not caring for people at a very basic, like not believing that they have a human right to life,
Yeah.
to dignity, like basic human rights that are universally, except by the US, universally endorsed. And that's problematic.
Yeah, no, and I think in this country, people are getting squeezed harder and harder and harder. And my hope is that that leads to a realization that like social programs are good, like
We're
socialized
all in this together.
messaging. Yeah.
The rhizomes are
No,
all
no,
working
no.
together.
Well, and it's like, honestly, it's like I wish people would realize, like, if you want to think of it purely in financial terms, great. We spend more money on healthcare than any country in the world. And we're one of the richest countries in the world. And that does not translate to better outcomes. Like, I think last time I checked, we were ranked like 47th in the world for healthcare.
Yeah.
It's like, people are like, ooh, people in Europe pay high taxes. And it's like, yeah, but actually, in the aggregate, they end up paying way less for healthcare than the average American does.
Mm.
And they don't have to be worried about going to the hospital and getting slapped with a $20,000 bill because, your insurance decided, oh, that hospital is not in network. It's a crazy, yeah, like I said, we could
No,
get, yeah,
there's a lot of room for overhaul. And I think that's why I love these discussions because we gotta stop. We gotta stop coming to these discussions with our minds already made up. We
yes,
gotta backtrack and we gotta say, you know what? What we have obviously is not working.
yeah,
Excuse me. It's obviously not working for a lot of our people. And
yeah,
so what can we do again? Make it better. Like
yeah,
we can do this better. Like
yeah,
we're smart people. We're creative people.
right.
We put man on the moon. I
Yeah,
think we
yeah,
can figure out how to keep our people fed and healthy, like
yeah.
clothed. I
Right.
think
Like, I
I
feel
think we
like,
can I think we can figure out this immigration thing without hurting people. Like I really do. I think we can do
yeah,
this. I think we can give farmers a sustainable livelihood. Like again, this is my this is my idealistic side coming through, but really, we're just going to give up on it. The
No, no,
alternative
no.
is just to
Yeah.
say what we've got is the best we can do. Oh, balderdash. It's never the best we can do.
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no.
anyway.
It's yeah.
So I
No,
got us all
I,
into this thing, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm saying, "Oh, bother," because
yeah,
this is
sorry.
what happens, and this is such a philosophical
Yeah.
conversation. We don't always get quite this philosophical. We didn't talk to you about how you maintain your mental
Yeah.
health. We haven't done any of that fun
Oh,
stuff that
man.
we
I
normally
know,
do.
and you're gonna.
But I think this is a really important conversation, and you have a really interesting way of dealing with your life situation that I think a lot of farmers have not seen. And so I love the fact that you were open and could share that with us and could just spark some thoughts, you know? Like I'm a big one for just like, let's listen to each other and hear what the other people have to say, and
Yeah,
then start asking ourselves questions about it. You know, how much of that sounds good to me? What would I like to, if that were possible, how would we make it happen? Like,
yeah, yeah.
so, with all of that creativity generated and all of this positive, like moving forward energy happening, we're gonna kind of close up with my signature question. And if you had one piece of advice that you thought every farmer should have, Lucia, what would that be?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I feel like honestly, I think to get into farming, I don't know if this is like a positive piece of advice.
I think I just said piece of advice.
Piece of advice. I mean, I think to get into farming, you have to love it. You have to really, really love it. You have to be motivated and you have to be sort of like living and breathing this because it's hard. I mean, I think that's the thing maybe I think I was going to get into this no matter what. Like I think this is my calling.
You got it in the genes. Yep,
Yeah, I got it in the,
it's that DNA thing. I say that all the time. It's either in
yeah,
your DNA or it isn't.
right. But I think people need to realize that it's hard. It requires a lot of sacrifice and a lot of dedication. Um, but if it's the thing that you love and it just like, I could talk about this stuff forever. And I've been doing this for like 12 years now, and it's still like the most interesting thing to me in the world.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that's you can't half-ass it. Like you got to be in. You
Yeah.
got to be ready to wiggle. You got to be ready to roll with the punches. And I think also you got to learn to be humble and learn from your mistakes because you're going to make a lot of them. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and that's a life lesson right there. I mean, that's
yeah,
one of those lessons that extends far beyond farming. I think if there were one character trait, well, no, let me say this. Two character traits. If there were two character traits that we could see in every human being in the world being lived out, I would want to see love and humility. Because
yeah,
if you have those two things, we're going to take care of each other and we're going to make things work.
yeah,
Because we're going to know we don't know it all, but we're going to care about the people around us enough to figure it out. And
yeah,
oh, I love that so much. Thank you, Lucia.
yeah,
Thank you for joining us. I don't know. I say this all the time, but we'll
yeah.
have you come back, and then we'll have another conversation maybe in a couple of years and see,
Yes,
where you're at, how things are going,
yeah.
all that.
It's funny because I live in a super conservative area, so I don't talk about my politics a lot. Now I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna be out on the internet. But it's good.
Here's what I will say. Up until last year, I have tried to keep my politics, which I don't even want to call it politics because over the last 10 years, I have lost affiliation with politics. Like I don't identify with any political category. Like I really am going for values. Like what
Yeah,
are the values that I believe in? And that comes from my faith. And so those things are like
yeah,
that's my North Star now. This like aligning to a political party is going to be the death of us all. And so I don't want to do that. Um, and I've avoided talking about a lot of those things because I have not wanted to as you're saying, ostracize people or create an issue. And I think at this point,
Yeah.
I'm like, our voices are powerful, and we have a place, like just speaking our truth is a very powerful thing, and it has a ripple effect that we can't even imagine. And so I say kudos to you for being bold and speaking out and giving us a different perspective. If we all keep talking about the same perspective in the same way, we're not going to learn anything. We're not going to do better because we're going to get stuck. So let's listen to people that we think are radical. Let's listen to those lunatics that we're like, "What are you doing? I would never do that."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe as we start listening, we could be like, "Oh, actually, that doesn't sound so crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, I could maybe get on board with that and figure out how to make it work for all of us." So thank you for sharing this stuff. And I am just encourage you on that. And thank all of you out there for joining us on Food, Flowers, and Fun. We will see you next time. Bye.
How do you multiply by fractions now?
Farmers calling, our show is all done. Goodbye, farewell, so long, adieu. See you next week, same time, same place for Food, Flowers, and Fun. Go in peace. Visit us at www.penlightfarmers.com.